Thank you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 11th, 2025 meeting of the Edgemont School District Board of Education. Can I have a motion to bring us back into public session? First, Grace, second, Josephine. First up is approval of the minutes for our February 25th, 2025 meeting. May I have a motion? First, Ami, second, Grace. Do I have any questions or comments on those minutes? All in favor? Okay, the minutes are approved. We do not have a treasurer's report, so next up is recognition of community. I understand we have people wish to speak. Someone wishes to speak?
Yes, Madam President, this evening we do have 3 members of the organization that are of the same organization. So I would like to invite one of them to come and speak at the podium.
Yes, our policy 1360 explicitly states any group or organization wishing to address the board must identify a single spokesperson. So while you decide that, I will go through the rest of the details. Recognition of community includes the opportunity for community members to offer their thoughts to the board. As stated in policy 1360, we encourage public participation on school-related matters at board meetings, whether those matters are on the agenda or not. However, this is not a forum for the discussion of matters that are not school-related. The board can't and won't respond to any questions asked in public comment. We have a specific agenda for this meeting. If warranted, the board will follow up on issues raised during public comment outside of the meeting or potentially add it to a future agenda if there are relevant updates for the community. Each community member can speak for up to 3 minutes. Jennifer will give you a verbal warning 30 seconds before the end of your time so you can wrap up your remarks.
Barbara Gronquist. Let me see if I can get through all this in 3 minutes. The board's decision to spend $8 million on a plastic field was a major one. We hope that you understand that there was and is a lot of opposition to it, and for good reason, as evidenced by the debate over such fields at comparable schools in our area and nationwide. Given the importance of the decision, including the fact that such fields would need to be replaced every 10 years about, and with the attendant disruption and cost, as well as the potential environmental and health impacts, it was a disservice to the community to bundle the turf issue with the $62 million bond resolution for matters that the community unquestionably desired. It seems that to many that the board acted without eliciting debate, without consulting a broad cross-section of the community, and more importantly, without giving our community a meaningful chance to vote on whether an alternative way to refurbish the field makes sense. Voters would like the opportunity to consider the relative costs and playable hours of plastic and grass fields. You still have the opportunity to fix the appearance that this decision was steamrolled without affecting any delay to the other parts of the bond rollout. You can approve an amended bond resolution providing for field improvements without specifying that they must be with synthetic turf and letting the community choose what they want. We think you will be surprised by the result, but if not, at least you will have ensured a truly consensual process. And another thing really that is on my mind is all of you talk very much about how you want to communicate with the community, but it seems that even by cutting us down to 3 instead of 9 minutes, you are sort of making a mockery of your own statement. And it is incumbent on the board and the administration to provide a healthy and safe environment for our students, both in the classroom and outside. You are well aware that there's controversy swirling around plastic turf, and that there are lots of available alternatives for good, organic, natural grass fields with good playability, and maintenance can be outsourced. Last month when we were here, we asked a number of questions, and we were asked to submit those questions in writing. We did, and we expected to hear something back. We have heard nothing. That is why we are here. If you want communication, you want community input, then I would really ask you, and I appreciate that at least I have the opportunity to speak, that you would provide some answers to the questions. I also noticed in the Edgemont newsletter that was sent out that one of the members of the community said that they feel that with the decline of the no longer existing Scarsdale Inquirer, there's little, if any, information about what goes on in school to people who don't have children in the school system, and that that person asked the board to ramp up their communication and the administration. We certainly ask that you do so. And last but not least, if you think that it's just the three of us who are here worried about this, we are representing a group of people. We are the ones who have the time to be here because we don't have little children at home to take care of. So I sincerely hope that you will listen to us and take input from the community and give us answers to the questions that we gave to you a month ago. Thank you very much.
All right, so that is, thank you. Athletic achievements.
Yes, this evening we have athletic achievements that Mr. Mahoney will be sharing with us.
Evening, everybody.
evening.
This is something that myself and Anthony want to do from the athletic department is start to give acknowledgement to student athletes at the end of the season for interscholastic achievements, with an emphasis on all league and all section. We're starting off on a high note because in the 9 years I've been here, this is the highest amount of individual accolades we've received, with 46 all league and 5 all section recipients. To start with all league, just give context, all league is made up about 4 to 5 schools. In order to make all league for a team-based sport, a coach will nominate a student athlete, and at the end of your coaches meeting, other coaches will vote, and if the student receives enough votes, they will meet the criteria to make all league. Individuals is a little bit different. Some sports have a end of the year league championship meet, and depending where students place, they'll make all league, and other students, it's a point system based on some sports amount of points, they'll meet the criteria. So without further ado, boys basketball, Avery Yee, Max Ho, and Miles Teixeira. Max and Miles also received all conference. Girls basketball, Ariana Dalal was honorable mention. Sarah Hugh received all league. Boys ski, Daniel Geller, Jonas Im, Ian McKenzie, Henry Smith, Bruce Rutherford, Nico Petruzziello, and Maxwell Yekalik. Girls ski, Misha Im, Isabella Rutherford, Isadora Mello, Leah Paley, Samantha Pfeiffer, and Alexa Paley. For boys swim, Yushen Wee. For boys winter track, James Brady and Anuj Nair both received honorable mention. Max Ellenberg, Arjun Rao, Evan Ballo, Alexander Guerrero Martinez, Alexander Chang, Griffin Mendeldork, Ethan Su, Justin Hugh, Cesar Arellano, Brian Liang, Randy Wang, Derek Valenzuela, Aaron Su, and Mark Burr all received all league. Girls track, Nora Agor, Ava Thomas, Adele G, Sophia Kumar, Hannah Evangelista, Juliet Kabakov, Eva Simon, Olivia Cartagena, and for wrestling, Stephen Ahn, Jordan Fisher, Gus Parsons, Nico DeMaio, Zachary de Guzman, and Andy Klobuchissa. And now for all section, which is a little bit more prestigious, because what all section will encompass is now you're taking the talent pool and increasing it by 5 times, because now you're taking all the leagues and combining them together. So we had boys swim, and the criteria is meet the same. Either it's voted upon or it's through individual performances based on the sectional meets or point system. So boys swim, Yushen Wee, winter track, Sophia Kumar, and wrestling, Stephen Ahn, Jordan Fisher, and Gus Parsons. And we just want to take 1 second to the athletic department. We want to congratulate a bunch of students who were also part of the all section student athletes who competed in the states. Gus Parsons was the Section 1 Division II champion, competed in the New York State Wrestling Championships at 190 pounds. Jordan Fisher, a Section 1 Division II champion, competed in New York State Wrestling Championships at 170 pounds and made it to the final day of competition. Yushen Wee competed in the New York State Swim Championships in the 100 fly and finished 18th in the entire state of New York. And Sophia Kumar competed in the New York State Indoor Track Championships in the pole vault and finished 12th in the entire state of New York. This season, Sophia was crowned league champion, Westchester County champion, and Section 1 Class B champion. So we want to just say congratulations to all the student athletes, and hopefully all the success from the winter will start to translate and carry over to the spring, which starts in about half a week. So thank you, everybody, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing the achievement of our athletes. I know a lot of work goes into those incredible results, but I also appreciate you explain. I never quite understood how they were selected. So thank you for giving that insight.
A little bit different, like I said, like some sports, you know, and each league is different too, based on sports as well too. So it's not, we don't have the same league for every single sport that we're in, so it is a little bit.
Great, thank you. I'm also seeing some students here. Welcome from our government class. I know some of you have been coming. Sorry, hate to put you, don't want to. If you have any questions afterwards, please reach out to any of us individually, or there's a board email, but welcome. And so moving on to acceptance of gifts, Dr. Hamilton.
Yes, we have one gift tonight that I'd like to read into the record. And that is in the amount of $3,825 from the PTA to Greenville by Hands on History Greenberg Nature Center.
Okay, can I have a motion to accept this gift? First Nilesh, second Josephine. Any questions or comments? All in favor? All right. It's been accepted. Again, thank you to the PTA for another generous gift, which will go straight to programs and materials that improve the experience of our students at Greenville tonight. We are grateful to the community organizations that provide important additional funding that allows us to offer this enhanced programming to our students. But a reminder that none of these donations would be possible without the support of the community. So when they reach out to you, please continue to respond. Moving on, we have board committee reports first up from the policy committee.
Yep. So tonight we are submitting policies 8625 and 8635 for first read. Taken together, they support what's required by Education Law 2D, FERPA, and the state's breach notification laws. So 8625 specifically is the policy on privacy and security for student, teacher, and principal data. And policy 8635 is for information security, breach, and notification. Just translating kind of like the basics of what these policies are seeking to accomplish. 8625 is focused on general technology and cybersecurity, covers things like acceptable use, network security, and cybersecurity, and essentially prevents breaches through security protocols within the district. And 8635 really handles more of the protection of personal data and establishes requirements for notification and response to breaches. So just has procedures and policies to support that process.
Okay, and these are both first reading.
Both for first read. Yeah.
So there is nothing for us to do, but if anyone has any questions or comments, I urge you to look at the drafts, and the policy committee has an email, right?
Yes. policy@edgemont.org.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
And so next up is curriculum committee. Ame, are you taking that?
Yep. So on February 26th, the curriculum committee met to discuss updates. We reviewed the plan for the upcoming superintendent's conference day, which already took place on March 3rd. We also reviewed summer curriculum writing and the path forward for Edgemont's portrait of a graduate and learner. So as we discussed in our meeting with Dr. Orozco, the featured session of the superintendent's conference day focused on the science of reading, curriculum development, and social emotional learning support for grade 7 to 12 students. For those of you who are unfamiliar, the science of reading is a comprehensive body of research-based evidence about how children learn to read. And there are 5 pillars, which are phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. The staff were then given the opportunity to participate in additional sessions of their choosing, ranging in a variety of topics from all means all, a curriculum and policy discussion, to student engagement and motivation. We then discussed Dr. Orozco's approach for summer curriculum writing. So principals will vet a select number of people who will work on curriculum scope and sequencing based on a new submission process. So the priorities for this summer's curriculum writing include literacy, social studies, and artificial intelligence.
Thank you. And thanks to the committee. I do not have a president's report tonight, so moving on to the superintendent's report, Dr. Hamilton.
Yes. First of all, I want to thank everyone for being here and as we continue our commitment for transparency and for strategic planning. Tonight's presentation will provide critical updates on 2 key areas: the process and progress that we are making on Bond 2024 initiatives, and the overview of budget considerations across the central departments. We'll begin with the update from Brian on the bond projects, ensuring that we remain accountable to our community's vision for improved facilities, safety enhancements, and expanded instructional spaces. This will be followed by a series of budget presentations that have been combined in one that speak directly to our core beliefs and profile of an Edgemont graduate, delivering the highest quality education for every student in our district. Dr. Felipe Orozco will continue budget priorities and curriculum instruction and assessment, focusing on how we continue to align resources to support innovative and equitable learning experiences. Paul Garofano will present on technology and STEAM, detailing the investments necessary to keep our students at the forefront of a 21st century education. And finally, Jen Del Conte and Ed Stickles will walk us through budget considerations for PPS, or pupil personnel services, ensuring that we continue to provide comprehensive support systems for students with diverse academic, social, and emotional needs, and to ensure that all of our work is founded on the principles of all means all. Each of these areas play a pivotal role in shaping the future of Edgemont, and I encourage thoughtful engagement and ask that as we move through tonight's discussion and as we are in our budget season, that you continue to follow along. The Edge magazine was released today. There will continue to be updates on our website, including the podcast, where there's some great conversations on there that all connect to all means all. So without further ado, Brian.
Great, thank you. I'm happy to share 5 bullet points as it relates to the current status of our bond projects. The first is a action item that's going to occur later this evening, where the Greenville HVAC and cafeteria project, and that would be HVAC in the cafeteria, not the whole school, was put out to bid. We had our bid opening, and we had a very favorable outcome. As you may or may not know, we must accept bids for each of the primes, so each general contractor, plumbing, electrical, and mechanical. We got several responses for each, which was a really great turnout and a great way to start this off. And most importantly, the total bid price across those 4 primes that we are looking to accept this evening is just about $1.7 million. Pre-referendum estimations for this work at the time was $2.1 million. And so it's always good to start on under budget and not pushing up against it. Of course, when we will be offering resolutions to the board over the next several months for this, not every project is going to come in under budget, and nor should that proposed budget be the only criteria we use to make a determination as to whether we'll accept it or not, as it's the grouping of the sum of all of the bids that we'll accept on several projects that we really need to make sure remain under budget. But this is a really good start for us. Secondly, the EHS cafeteria project, which is the second project in phase 1, that is going out to bid, has been put out to bid on February 26th. The bid response deadline is April 1st. So we'll be holding our public opening at 11 o'clock. They held a pre-bid meeting today with our director of facilities, our engineers, and architect, and there was a really good turnout again, which is good. What that means is they come on site, actually look at the logistics, so that it's not just architectural plans, but they're seeing the physical site layout and can ask questions prior to the bid process. Simultaneously, there's a lot of ongoing conversations about construction logistics, as we need to be able to manage both the impact to the educational setting and try to remain on timeline and schedules. The current major point of conversation is about the EHS cafeteria. When can we pull it out of service? What's an appropriate time to do so to ensure that we can meet a deadline of opening up school with a new cafeteria 2 years from now at the time. So I've been working with our architect, with Ray Renda, with Kyle Hosher, and I'll be meeting with our food service directors tomorrow on Thursday to talk about some of those logistics so that we can provide a true and realistic timeline to contractors in terms of the number of weeks that they would have available to do that work. Lastly, on the financial side, each time you go through a bond process and a bond sale, Moody's ratings typically does a credit rating of the district. So we did go through that process, and I'm happy to report that we have maintained our AA1 status. That's the second highest rating that you can have as a public entity, AAA being the highest. I think I had shared with the board before, I had hopes that we might be able to move ourselves up. It's rare for us in back-to-back ratings to jump. since our last rating, we actually moved from AA2 to AA1. And the feedback we received was declining enrollment, and both here locally and regionally were some of the primary driving factors that would limit us from jumping to that final upper echelon. The bond closing date was moved to March 20th, but that means that the sale is on tomorrow. So tomorrow afternoon, we should have a sense as to what our offerings are and the rates. And so it's a key moment for us in terms of budget development, thinking of debt service for next year, and really getting that first project off the ground. That's it.
Thank you,
Before,
Brian.
before I ask for questions from the board, can I just say, I am so happy, like we're reaching this point. This is really exciting. It's been a
Us
long
too.
road. And a lot of work's gone into it, and thank you.
Of
Thanks
course.
to everyone. You know, obviously, we still have a lot of work ahead of us, but this
Yeah.
is a big step forward.
Yeah, we want to see construction vehicles on campus. That's the big thing. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Shovels in the ground.
do we have anything, starting here, any questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, so one or two plans. Delighted to hear that people are budgeted numbers. Can you give some color on how many bits came and like how you do it kind of, and also we don't want to go for the lowest bid depending on how you make the updated assessment.
Yeah, great question. So without pulling it up, I think it probably estimates will be sufficient for this. In mechanical, we had, I think, 15 responses. So that would be the HVAC aspect of it, which was a huge turnout, which is really good for us if we have a successful start to this, because we've many of our projects are going to involve that, and they're going to be all different based on the buildings and the location. So the fact that we had a lot of contractors in that field looking to submit a bid was a really good start. On the general contractor side, I think we had over 7 bids. I think we had 10 for electrical and fewer for plumbing, but it's a small plumbing job. I think it was 3 or 4. So that was a huge turnout. When we came to the bid opening, it was held in the facilities garage, and it was like standing room only. We couldn't. It was really surprising. Compare that, if you juxtapose that with our attempt 4 years ago, you know, we got 1 or 2 bids, and they were all over budget, right? So very different world. Your question as it relates to lowest bid. So we're required to accept lowest responsible bidder, which doesn't always mean lowest. But there would have to be statutory reason as to why we could reject somebody who had a lower bid than another entity. Our construction management team at Triton, in conjunction with John D'Angelo, our architect, and Ray, interview the lowest bidders. In each situation, they interviewed at least 2, so the lowest, the second lowest, and some the third lowest, based on maybe their history with those vendors and knowing whether or not they thought they had a true sense of the project. The responsible aspect of that phrase is they really do go over the project, make sure they truly understand what they bid on, make sure that their costs are really aligned, that there was no miscommunication in the process, and they do vet the contractors based on previous work, because they do submit to us references and otherwise. In each case, I'm happy to report that the lowest bidder was the selected vendor in each case, as there was no reason to not accept them as most responsible in that case.
That's fantastic. My second question is, given that using a lot of tabs,
So great question. Huge concern for me. To be really honest, I think Dr. Moselli and I have talked a little bit about this as well. When we talk about steel, so I think we're going to get a sense on that in the high school cafeteria project. The steel footings that will represent the new expanded structure will be part of this initial bid. So I think the volatility that may be out there in that market or others may come through in our next set of bids. I'm not sure it had a great impact on this project. And in fact, the majority of the work is really labor-related work for this. The mechanical systems for HVAC would be the one area where we might have seen some. In terms of protection, I don't know. There aren't a whole lot of protections we can put in place. The the benefit to us here is if you can find opportunities to be under budget in certain areas, there are going to be opportunities for us to have a little more wiggle room elsewhere. We do have contingencies in place, both in terms of the overall budget construction, and we know we've already yielded some cost savings through contract work on architects and otherwise when you compare to actual expenditures to what we might have predicted pre-referendum. So those controls are going to be something we're going to have to manage, but certainly will be the market is going to bear different results. Mhm.
Sense of where we are compared to what we expected doing.
So capital markets, our advisors, they do produce like a monthly report for us. Their proposed rates for AA1 situated schools has been pretty consistent. It's been hovering between 3.25% and 3.5%. And that's based on actual data, their clients and other clients regionally on similarly sized bonds. So there has not been any wild variance there, but every district's offering is a little bit different. So.
Anything, Melanie? Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
And we'll go over now to budget.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Felipe Orozco. I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction and Assessment here. Have Mr. Paul Garfano and Ms. Jen Del Conte with me tonight. We're very excited to present to you our proposed budget for school year 25-26. And just wanted to give a little introduction about what is a budget. And I think that we all know what is a budget, and we always tend to assume it's numbers and numbers, but just following that conversation we were just having now, it really impacts everything that goes into the community. In our case, we really are together in terms of how it affects our community, our students, and we feel very strongly that a budget should always reflect our values, our priorities, and a commitment to success. So we are here to show how our budgets foster innovation, student-centered learning, and also how we aim to build community and collaboration, really looking at a holistic understanding of how we are going to invest and how we aim to empower every child and really align our vision with all means all and our goals and beliefs. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Garfano, who's going to introduce our alignment with the goals.
Thank you, Dr. Orozco. So much in line with the building budgets, we really made it a concerted effort for our PPS, curriculum and instruction and technology and STEAM budgets to align with the Board of Education goals. And we do that through obviously communication between ourselves, between our departments, through stakeholder engagement, being in the buildings, interacting with staff, interacting with our colleagues, and really understanding what our students need to have a fulfilling educational experience in Edgemont. By aligning our budgets, our three departmental budgets, we really want to have clearly defined objectives such as improving student achievement, so that the district can really focus on areas that matter most. This alignment not only promotes effective use of funds, but it also ensures where the resources are allocated, where they'll have the greatest impact, whether that's in a curriculum project, a PPS program, improvements in our technology, our infrastructure, or the growth and development of our STEAM program. Now I'd like to welcome up Jennifer Del Conte.
So there is a very strong connection between Edgemont's Portrait of a Graduate and the district goals. This alignment means ensuring that the traits that are outlined in the Portrait of the Graduate directly correspond with the overarching goals set by the Board of Education, ensuring that all initiatives focused on achieving the shared vision for student success across all levels of learning. As we go through the presentation tonight, we believe that you will see how this budget presentation connects with the portrait of the graduate and the district goals. At this time, I would like to turn this over to Dr. Rosso, who will speak to curriculum instruction.
Okay, well, thanks so much. I feel like I just want to make the connection very clear. What you're looking at here is an umbrella. And again, we decided to align it very much so with the previous conversation that we had with our schools budgets. As you can tell, we have the color coding, so it's understood. But I just want to reiterate that our budgets they don't exist in silos. It's really a collaboration. It's a collaborative process. So what you see here, you already seen some of these topics, the themes, the overarching topics. It's the umbrella. And these are just highlights. And so some of this may sound a little repetitive, but it's because we have been collaborating with schools, and obviously we're here to support them as a district administration. So I'm going to highlight some of the things that are priorities, or some of the initiatives that are exciting and the alignment with the goals. So the first, in terms of innovative and accessible student-centered learning, we have been discussing this even tonight. It's a priority to continue to ensure that science of reading it's really well understood. Our teachers are prepared so that we can support our students. And so in that line, we are investing in staff development, additional materials, and we'll continue to follow the software that we currently use to teach phonics, phonemic awareness, comprehension, vocabulary, and so forth. So not only the materials and the training, but we also need to know how our kids are doing. So with that, also everything we use in terms of data collection, or STAR assessments or data dashboards. Dr. Hamilton has presented on this before, what he calls MFR, right? So we are funding all of these processes at the building and district level, so we can actually utilize data to inform instruction. And something that was mentioned earlier in terms of our curriculum writing, we really want to give our teachers time and prioritize what needs to be worked on so that it can meet the requirements and the demands of the classroom. So two of the programs that we are focused on, we will be focusing on later this summer, is the FLESH curriculum, which is the new, and we are continue to build our STEAM program, which Mr. Garofano is going to speak about a little later. So in terms of collaboration and community engagement, this is also overseeing and collaborating with districts, with the schools in terms of everything that happens with curriculum presentations, with assemblies, with events. How is that process aligns with curriculum instruction? So we are collaborating with all stakeholders. We're supporting school programs that had already been presented here before by our school principals. And one of the biggest, the initiatives that is going to start, or it has already started, is the vertical teams, which we have been discussing. And we intend to expand this next year. This spring, we're starting with our 4 core teams, ELA, math, social studies, and science. But our goal for these teams is to really work on the alignment, K-12 alignment, ensuring that our instruction is not only meeting state standards, we're exceeding standards and really pushing our students far beyond what's required, and really thinking about innovative practices. In addition to that, also ensuring that the policy meets or really can be fulfilled at the classroom level. We're talking about AI, we're talking about everything that you hear here that seems a little dry, but it's really, this is what we use to base our decisions for curriculum and instruction. And our last goal, which is social, emotional, and character development, also utilizing some of that data to inform how we can support a holistic development of our students. Also funding for staff development, conferences, in-service training, we will discuss in detail on our workshop, and also professional books. So this is like I said, this is like a big overarching and overview of curriculum instruction and assessment. And so I am going to show you the budget priorities. Like I said, science of reading, the analysis, the support, the alignment, the programs, professional development and materials, not only K-5 but K-12. Also supporting and enhancing our evaluation and data systems, as I mentioned, making sure that everything is aligned, our data dashboards, or APPR, all of the software that goes into really tracking our data that's under our purview in curriculum instruction, the benchmark assessments. Opportunities for professional collaboration, like as I mentioned, our new programs, FLES and STEAM, expanding the professional capacity for science of reading instruction and artificial intelligence training and implementation. And last but not least, like I said, investing in social, emotional, and character development, and really looking at defining and refining system-wide structures, which we already have, but we want to make sure that are hitting all of our schools. So our bottom line for curriculum and instruction for the 25-26 school year is an estimated total budget of $429,204. And that is actually a decrease, and you're going to start seeing a pattern here. It's a decrease of 6.4%. And I would like to explain a little bit about this decrease. Last year, there were significant investments in pilot programs. There were investments in also revamping report card in Infinite Campus. So these are expensive projects that were budgeted for. This year, we included, it's basically we're picking up the maintenance of those pilots. So for instance, we spoke last time about selecting a social studies pilot. The report card is being done this year. So we don't have these big ticket items, which is why you see the decrease. But in some cases, again, this is not going to be a pattern, but this is something that, you know, we are sticking true to what we need and being responsible with our budget. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Mr. Graff.
Thank you, Dr. Orozco. We make it look easy, but these presentations we had, the internal presentations were monsters. I think the building administrators can attest. For 3 buildings or 3 departments to come together, it's a real exercise in less is more. But I think we're doing a good job of hitting all the main points. So without further ado, diving into technology and STEAM, in alignment with, the focus on the board goals, digital information and literacy, always at the forefront of what we're working on in the school district. I have the clicker, I forgot. That really happens in the classroom with our K-12 instructional technology facilitator, pre-planning with the teachers, being in the classroom, co-facilitating with the teachers, and focusing on that digital literacy and that information literacy and integrated unit design. We're in the 8th year of our one-to-one Chromebook initiative. And not only do all of our 5th through 12th graders have their own district provided device, but I'm happy to say we're ahead of schedule. And now all of our K through 4 students have their own device in their classroom. So that's a testament to our technology department and some of our partners at the Lyric for helping us bring that to fruition. Our STEAM program continues to grow. We've expanded our coding and computational thinking program in the upper elementary and junior high school using a platform called Skillstruck, and we look forward to continuing that. We have our 7 through 12 project Lead the Way units and courses running, and from design and modeling to robotics, flight and space. So we're really excited. Getting back to the bond is to have our dedicated STEAM spaces, which I'll talk to in a moment, and how next year's budget is really going to start to plan for that. And we're always looking towards upgrades to our network infrastructure. With regards to collaboration and community engagement, as Dr. Orozco mentioned, we have our vertical teams. I'm working with our STEAM vertical team, and we have a lot of work to do. We've already met once. We're hoping to meet a couple more times before the end of the year. We have our STEAM fair on May 20th. That's the night of the budget vote. So we look forward to having another fun evening with all of our student participants. We run our lunch and learns. We had our very successful AI forum last month, and we offer a lot of opportunities through the Lower Hudson Regional Information Center, otherwise known as the Lyric, and our managed IT services. Through social, emotional, and character development, we have ongoing cybersecurity training for all staff, PD on technology integration, on conference days, release time, and other conferences, through STEAM and tech conferences, and always focuses on with our students for digital citizenship and media literacy. Okay, so diving a little deeper in, so the development of the STEAM program, in preparing for next year's budget, Dr. Orozco and I, we're looking at a number of things. One, what curriculum platform are we going to use in those STEAM classes? Are we going to stick with Project Lead the Way? We're looking at a couple of others. Some teachers and I have been going on site visits. We don't really need to reinvent the wheel, but we do need to have a program or a curriculum that best suits the needs of Edgemont students. So we're trying to prepare for that, all of the equipment and consumables that are outside of the bond, and that's really what the operating budgets will cover. Continuing our SkillStruct program for grades 3 through 8, coding and computational thinking, and they have a really strong robotics program that we're hope to build on next year. And of course, our grades 7 through 12 Project Lead the Way, ongoing equipment and consumables. Next year, we've budgeted for new laptops for our 8th grade STEAM program. Through digital information and literacy, sustaining our one-to-one Chromebook program. The prices of Chromebooks, since we started the program, they went up, then they came down, and now they're back up again. So, we work very closely with our vendor, Dell, in understanding that and really having a good year-to-year plan, but also a five-year plan so that we have a good refresh schedule set up. Diving down into the technology department, there's always work to be done around devices, infrastructure, and network management. It's not just keeping up with the day-to-day fires, but again, that 2-year, 3-year, 5-year, even 10-year planning always comes into play so that there are no major surprises year to year in the technology budget. Working with the Lyric, we have a number of services that we partner with the Lyric on through vertical and field support. We also purchase our internet and fiber services through them. So that's always, at the forefront of planning for the budget. We did have a couple of non-operating budgets, non-operating projects that were paid for through a generous donation to the district. And that helped offset 3 substantial purchases that it would have otherwise come through next year's budget. And those include an upgrade to our wireless network here at the high school, an upgrade to our core server, which is becoming end of life this summer, and new Apple or Mac laptops for our EHS art classes. So through that generous donation, that really helped get to the bottom line, which I'll show you in a moment, and really keep the technology and STEAM budget stable. And then finally, professional learning opportunities. We've offered a number of AI learning opportunities, and we're looking forward to doing that tenfold next year through Magic School, Canva, and a number of other programs. And a lot of our work happens through our instructional collaboration with our K-12 instructional technology facilitator. STI, Lyric has model schools of which we're a member of. A lot of our teachers take advantage of that. And finally, the Technology Learning Institute events, which again, are widely attended by our faculty. Okay, so the bottom line, the estimated budget, there's a year-to-year decrease of 0.4% or a total of $4,407. And we're very happy with that because we really were able to budget for everything that we needed. And again, that generous donation really helped us stay on track. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Jennifer Delahunty for the PPS.
So PPS. So one of the things that I was thinking about as we were putting this presentation together is what is the role of PPS? And I think that we could come up with long convoluted answers, but it really comes down to 2 things. It comes down to empowering students and giving them the tools they need in order to be successful within the Edgemont community. So having said that, I just want to highlight several ways that we are supporting those board initiatives. So if you look under innovative and accessible student-centered learning, it really has to do with making sure that we have mechanisms in place to allow students to be successful. They could be anything from individualized programs on an IEP or 504, or making sure that we have the math and the reading resources available for the student. That really is what we are doing to strengthen the student to ensure their success. Collaboration, we foster collaboration through our parent meeting, particularly with the child committee. We've done several presentations with that committee to give the parent information, so they are partners with us in ensuring that their children are successful. And lastly, in the social, emotional, and character development, we want our student to be successful outside of the classroom as well as in the classroom. So we have really partnered with the Best Unified Sports through our athletic program and the Best Buddies program, in which we allow students to pair up with other members of the Edgemont community so they can partake in all that we have to offer. So our budget priorities, I think these three graphics represent the key priority areas for PPS. The first over here highlights Edgemont's commitment to ensuring that all students are educated in what we call the least restrictive environment. We need to ensure the students have access to the supports they require in order to achieve success in the classroom. And that could be anywhere from receiving support in the general education classroom all the way up to supporting students by having them attend out of district placement. But there's a wide range of supports in which we can provide our students. The second graphic reflects our key role in PPS, which is to ensure that all students are supported and provided with opportunities to be with success. So for some students I mentioned earlier, they may need an intervention plan, and others, they just may need building level supports. Traditionally, PPS is probably one of the most challenging budgets to develop because there is a constant change. Student move into the district, student move out of the district. We call this the ebb and flow of PPS. So as the student needs change, the department needs to make an adjustment in its supports. And we are committed to providing the appropriate support, not only for the students we have, but for the student that we may inherit in the future. We shared a lot of this data in our December meeting, but we wanted to give you some percentages. So if you look at the percentage of students who are what we call classified or have an IEP. So as you see in the 22-23 school year, we were at 12%, and right now we are at 11.5%. That did not mean that we would end the year at 11.5. That's where we are right now at this point in time. We also started tracking Section 504 plan, which is a little bit different than an IEP. It speaks about accommodation and modification. So as you see, we were at 8.7%, and we have been flat since 23-24 to now at 10%. The other graph here represents actual bodies, not a percentage. But most of Edgemont students who have an IEP are here in Edgemont. But there are some students where we may not have the resources or supports they need. So we partner with other programs. It could be another public school, or it could be OC. There are a whole host of resources that we may tap into. So as you can see, the total number last year, we were at 23. Right now we are at 20, and next year we're projected to be at 18.5 students. I think this speaks tremendously to the amount of resources that we have been able to build in health to really support these students. So our bottom line is that we anticipate a decrease of 12.2%. And this also takes into account the we have built in what we call some cushions or contingencies that will maybe help with our unanticipated expenses that have already been built into this. Why do we see a decrease? Again, this goes back to the ebb and flow of PPS as we see students come into the district and students that may no longer need our supports. Having said that, I'd like to turn this over to Dr. Wilson.
So I did mention it was a little bit of a pattern in terms of the decrease, but I just want to show you, this is the three departments' bottom lines for you to peruse. And again, I just like to emphasize that the process of building the budget, it has been very collaborative. And in many cases, you have already seen particularly the curriculum budget in the schools, but also with my colleagues here. So with that, we will open up for Q&A.
All right. Thank you. I'll start down this end, Tommy. Okay, Grace?
I have a couple of clarifying questions for Dr. Roscoe that I'll ask them both at the same time. The first is just in terms of data collection, I was curious as to whether all of those data sources were now all flowing through Panorama or if they are still in somewhat discrete locations. And then the second question was a little bit more for the community's benefit, just a deeper definition of what curriculum writing means, because I know that term comes up a lot and it's often confusing for people as to what our teachers are actually quote unquote writing and so what that process is.
Sure. So to address the first question, yes, it has been integrated and we're moving forward to really utilizing that system, Panorama you're referring to. But in terms of the data sources, just, we have, I would say, like two major sources. We have what's available, like, public data. So all of the testing from the New York State testing program. That means 3 through 8 in regions, right? But at this point, so like if we were to use that data, that's all data, right? Because that's last year's data. Now, we constantly use the main data point. One of the main data points is achieved through STAR assessment, which is something that we do. We have benchmarking. So those are the data points that I'm referring to. And in addition to that, for our elementary schools, we do formative assessment in terms of phonics, phonemic awareness. So all of that gets collected and gets analyzed. And this is what our building administrators use to inform instruction, to inform differentiation and so forth, intervention and so forth. In terms of the second question, so yes, thanks, a very, very excellent question. We tend to think that we are, every year, we may have State of New York releases standards revisions ever so often. But not only that, but so in terms of really looking at what are the things that can be improved, not necessarily that are wrong or anything like that, but it's improved, or when we have a new program. So for instance, we know that we continue to build our STEAM program until we get our physical spaces. So as Paul mentioned, we have dedicated team of educators that are right now currently looking at different options. So are we going to use what we're currently using, or we're going to use, and it's a year-long effort, but they are teaching. These are educators that are also in the classrooms, right? So summer curriculum writing really gives them the opportunity to focus. And so let's say we picked, so for instance, we already picked one of our, I'm just going to use another example. We just picked our social studies curriculum. So our teachers are going to need time to develop, to look at it, to develop the sequence. As I mentioned in one of my previous presentations, the curriculum is made up of the materials, but also how we teach it and, and so forth. So they need time to develop that, to look at it, to make sure that, when they come back, it's ready to go. So that's what we use every year. And every year, so teachers might change. So for instance, we have some ancient civilizations, right? Just to keep with the social studies topic. They might want to switch which ones they're looking or they're focusing on in specific. So for sixth grade social studies, for instance, right? So it's a living and breathing thing that the teachers get to collaborate and improve every year. That's what it is. And so whenever we have a new program, we prioritize. We put time so that teachers can actually develop it, so it's ready for use. And again, so it's a cycle. And then I aim to, in the future, continue to build cycles. Once it's all integrated and we know that it's aligned, then we can build, you usually have a 3 to 5 year cycle where it's just healthy to look at what are we using, what are the gaps, how can we improve it, and do we need to look at other options? And it's usually between 3 and 5 years. And especially, so for instance, right now, we anticipate our standards changing because of the portrait of a graduate from the state. So some of the standards might change. So it's a continuous work. So thanks. That's a very, very good question.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I have a few questions, but first of all, let me compliment by saying I'm delighted. Even I said that in the last presentation also, that we are aligning all of these programs and the budgeting with the goals of the district. So it gives us clarity on how we are going to eventually achieve this goal. So thank you for doing that segregation. Just an observation. I always see, and even in the last, that we always heavy on goal 1, but by the time we come to goal 3, it kind of, the number of works starts becoming smaller and smaller. And I'm just wondering, is there, because it gets covered, or you think that goal is kind of, I'm just trying to get a perspective on why is it happening across the 3 presentations.
So you want me to address it? Sure. So I think, this is, if anything, I would totally agree with you, but I think that, our community is very focused on 1 and 2. And I think we're putting a little more light into number 3. And we're realizing that it's, in order to have a holistic education, we need to put, more emphasis on number 3. And with that also comes differentiation and how students are seeing themselves in the curriculum, and how teachers are valuing differences and so forth. So I don't know so that's what, yes, you're not wrong, but I think that because we have the goals, we are trying now to move the balance, right? That's the aim. I don't know, you want to chime in for that?
I actually, when I was taking my internal budget workshop slides and packaging them with Felipe and Jen, at first I didn't really see much for goal 3. And then I went back and I looked at what our department does and what our teachers do around digital citizenship, cybersecurity, and once I thought of one, then it all started snowballing. So I had to really process it. I don't think I ever really fully processed the 3rd goal. Does that make sense?
Got it. You're basically putting the finger on us, but maybe we don't do a good job on goal 3. But
I think the other part to goal 3, though, it is designed to be more qualitative in nature. So there isn't a lot of hard data that is associated with goal number 3. So the tenets, it's designed to be a more affective domain. So the tenets of goal 3 are woven throughout the rest of the goals and all the other work that we do, because it's a little harder to extrapolate direct data that measures goal number 3.
Yeah, almost like things we take for granted, and then you realize that Dr. Hamilton we were talking about a related topic this morning, and he said, you guys do so much more than what you captured here. And that's what occurred to me, Nilesh. I went, oh yeah, we are doing so much more that is captured here. And it just took me a moment to process that. So I'm going to continue to process it and build on it for sure. Jen, did you want to add anything?
Right, you got to have a lot of
I agree.
It's really the heart of PPS.
Yeah.
The counseling department, it falls under PPS. So every day we're dealing with making sure the students feel affirmed and supported. And I think that we also in turn are supporting the technology piece and the curriculum piece. I think this really speaks to the high collaboration we have.
So I have 2 other questions, but I'll let others ask before I ask.
Go ahead, I'll
Okay.
close it.
Yeah, so my second, this is just a kind of a suggestion. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but so we see a decrease in the budget this year. And when I look at the numbers, it would be nice to get some perspective on what is recurring and what is one-off. So we can get some, a kind of hey, like 10-20% of the budget is recurring, how much is one-off, or so just to get some more perspective when we look at these numbers on a holistic basis. So it would be good to have that in.
Yes. And if you look in the budget worksheets, you will actually see which lines went up and by what percentage it went up. And those things that are, or went down by a large number, those anomalies, obviously the justification is provided and more opportunity for that kind of Q&A and back and forth will happen during the work session.
The binders will contain more data than you could possibly ever want to dive into.
And you can save them.
Yeah. So, and again, I don't want to increase the work. I was just looking at the holistic numbers. So just that breakup into recurring and non-recurring. So just so it will give us a good picture. So that's two small questions on subcomponents now. So Paul, you mentioned that you are increasing the AI investment tenfold. So can you give some numbers as to what numbers are we looking on AI, like just to get some color?
Sure. We had a long discussion at Cabinet this morning about where we are and where we're headed. Dr. Hamilton had been with a number of educators from around the country, and I believe he said we're kind of right in the middle. So we're not on the bleeding edge, but we're certainly not prehistoric. And kind of like the STEAM program, everybody's doing it, but we need to do what's best for Edgemont. And how we're doing that is through collaboration, lots of dialogue with the community through the AI forum, lots of dialogue administratively with the staff, with the teachers, understanding what the students know and what they're actually doing. And that's where we're at. So looking forward to next year, we're getting a premium subscription to Magic School, which is being used widespread K-12. And that's really emerged as, I'd say, one of the top 3 AI platforms in education. As well, we just got a premium subscription to Canva, which is another, I would say, top 3 AI program. Beyond that, it's a fluid conversation. I don't think that there's really a blueprint for it, but I think we're at a good place in just constantly talking about it and keeping all the stakeholders involved.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add something in terms of preparation. This is, a 2-year-old thing that is moving at the pace of light, right? So I think also Paul was mentioning when he mentioned, tenfold is really, we want to invest in professional development for teachers because we know that the kids are already ahead of us. So we need to, get caught up and really provide that training and that ability for them to utilize this tool, this powerful tool.
And will that PD be part of this budget or will that be a separate?
It's part of my.
Part of your budget. Okay. And my last question is for Jen. So out of that $3 million budget that you have, roughly how much of out of district placement is taking away the larger chunk? Is it like that really a big part, or is it like some?
Have that number right in my.
No, absolutely no issues.
But I do believe that we put it into 2 separate buckets. We have the out of district where the CSE makes the recommendation for students to go out. And that can range anywhere from, the 50s to over 100,000, depending on the needs of the particular student. But then we also have students that have parentally placed their student and they're looking for the district to partner with them to reimburse them for certain cost. So that is a different bucket. I think that bucket, those 2 buckets always change. They ebb and they flow, as I mentioned earlier, depending on where the students are, what resources we have. And I think some of it comes down to what the parents are comfortable with if they choose to place their student privately. So I can't give you an exact number, but that really is one of our big budget items.
I can chime in on it, and I think always share this. it's odd, but we've always consistent with it. We don't include, in these budgets doesn't represent personnel costs. So when we think about, like what's the PPS budget, it's not really taking into account special education teachers or the district admin staff or all of those. So it's going to make this number feel even bigger in context. If you include tuition and contracted services and related services that are being provided to our district students, it's somewhere between 2 million and 2.4 million. The contracted services line, we'd have to kind of break down a little bit about who's in district and who's not. You're looking at between 2/3 to 80% of the overall cost here. Jen did mention there are contingencies in place as well, and included in that is a $200,000 placement contingency, which effectively could be one student. So that seems like such a large amount, but that's really one student in a residential program or one student at a BOCES program with significant related services. So that in many years in the past, we've held larger contingencies, but we start to look at patterns and trends. We haven't used it to the full extent, so we did reduce that a little bit this year.
Thank you. Ami, did anything come up from the conversation?
Well, I really appreciate that we're kind of going into this new territory, it feels like, kind of like with the AI programming, with the foreign language in the elementary schools. And I'm just, there's this saying that says, it goes something like, every improvement is a change, but not every change is necessarily an improvement. So how will you kind of know that the change is an improvement?
So, I mean, I think to your point in terms of like, how do we know? Well, the first, I guess the first is the motivation, right? Why are we doing all this change, right? So I think in this day and age, and you know this, and we know that we are preparing students for jobs that they don't exist, right? So that's a given. Now, we know that I'm just going to use the example of FLES, right? So like global competency, just even opening up our students to awareness of cultures and language, and just even like making them hungry for languages. That's something that they're going to utilize, especially as they go to look for other opportunities. So I guess that's a very good question in terms of, and Dr. Hamilton was referring to a qualitative process, right? So like, we are going to build, just like we're building the programs, we need to really sort of identify what is it going to be our data, because we already have the metrics in terms of achievement. We don't need that. So there's something that is, we're going to definitely tap into students once as we're building the program. Experience, right? Holistic. And to Nalesha's point, in terms of our third goal, that is also going to provide a different holistic, well-rounded education, right? And I guess in terms of just piggybacking on what Paul was saying in terms of STEAM, right? The STEAM like everyone's doing STEAM. So what is going to be our way, and how are we going to then make sure that our students get the skills they need? Again, what I mentioned earlier, for the jobs that don't exist yet. So it is an ongoing conversation, but that's why we have also invested in looking at what is going to be the data, what's going to be the evaluation of that. So that's a very good question, but it's an ongoing question.
I think the other part I'll add to that is ensuring that our district remains a competitive district. So the United States is one of the very few countries that does not require elementary age students to master at least 2 languages. Our current kindergarten students, by the time they graduate, 80% of the jobs that they will occupy then does not exist right now. So when you think about the steps that we are taking now to prepare our students for such an uncertain future, there are things that we know they will need in their toolkit. They will need to know how to be global citizens. They will need to know how to manage technology. They will need to know how to problem solve, and they will need to know more than 1 language. So the steps we are taking now will give us the opportunity to build a district that continues to be competitive and gather data along the way that will ensure that we are moving it with the right pace, in the right direction, with the right initiatives. And the opposite of that is to not be courageous enough to implement some of these efforts and risk our students not being prepared for the world when they will be competing against so many other students who will be.
And just picking up on that, one of my comments was going to be one of the things I saw in here that I really appreciated was some of the forward-looking stuff and the planning that is embedded into this, especially, Paul, you talked about that, in the STEAM area, like looking ahead and sort of thinking down the road 5, 10 years, because, that's the world our students are going to be living in. Just want to close it out. I actually kind of glad you combined this presentation. In some way we look at this stuff in silos, but in some ways those divisions are false because it all flows together. And so doing it together really sort of highlights that. And it was a nice way to look at it. I also appreciated the digital literacy measures that are in here. One thing I just wanted to clear up, because this happens every time the PPS budget goes down. Jen, I just want you to reassure parents that this doesn't mean that PPS services are going down, that their kids' needs are going to be met, because every time that number goes down, people start worrying.
Absolutely not. I mean, we absolutely remain committed to supporting our students. And I think, the ebb and the flow really comes into, the out of district placements. It comes into the students coming in or out. But we are absolutely committed to working with the buildings. And I think if you go line by line, I think that we support stuff.
Thank you. I think that does it for the board. Thank you very, very much for all the work.
Good job.
And so that brings us to the consent portion of our agenda. I would like to take item I1 out of order and do that first, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
Is there anything else that anyone wants to take out of order?
So it would be good to have some note comments on the society claims that are there.
Sure.
Okay. Do you want to do that out of order, or do you want to just, after I move, make the comment?
Brian can just make the comments.
Okay, okay. Okay, so, I1.
I1, which is the superintendent's recommendation for tenure for Brian Paul as our assistant superintendent. We started to roast you tonight and thought we'd scare you.
Please.
Tonight is with great confidence and enthusiasm that I recommend Brian Paul for tenure. Technically speaking, Brian reached the milestone yesterday. But since we did not feel the need to convene an emergency meeting, we are taking it out of order and making it official this evening. Of course, the only reason that slight delay would matter is if there were any questions whatsoever about whether he has earned this distinction. And so let's be perfectly clear. There is no reason whatsoever that Brian does not deserve this recommendation. Brian is an invaluable asset to our organization. His depth of knowledge, unwavering dedication, and meticulous attention to detail ensure that our finances and our systems for fiscal accountability not only represent a level of excellence that exceeds any BA I've ever worked with, but also has a high degree of accountability and integrity. As my assistant in the business office, Brian brings a wealth of expertise and a steady, reliable presence that allows us to navigate the complexities of school finance with confidence and precision. And of course, I had the pleasure of collecting some narratives from other people today so that we could speak to Brian's extraordinary accomplishments in the district. Emmy Moselli, our director of HR, says, Mr. Paul is an outstanding leader who granted me the autonomy to manage a significant portfolio of responsibilities while providing consistent guidance and support. Our regular meetings were opportunities for collaborative discussions where his deep knowledge and tireless work ethic were always evident. His leadership on the district's bond initiatives was exemplary as he worked diligently with the audit, bond, and finance committees to ensure all efforts were executed with precision and accountability. One of Mr. Paul's greatest strengths is his dedication to maintaining compliance with all financial oversight policies and regulations. His commitment to the professional development of staff in these areas has been instrumental in building a knowledgeable and efficient team. Kyle Hosier, principal of EHS, says Brian Paul has excelled in every role he has taken on: teacher, math department chair, assistant principal, and assistant superintendent. His success is no surprise to those who know him. His dedication, commitment to learning, and ability to anticipate challenges set him apart. Brian's sharp analytical skills, deep care for students, deep understanding of Edgemont, and unmatched work ethic make him more than deserving of tenure. Congratulations, Brian. Kyle says Edgemont is lucky to have you. Paul Garifano, our Director of Tech, says, I am always impressed by how Brian handles complex situations with such calm and practical solutions. He has a natural ability to explain complicated matters in very down-to-earth, palatable ways. On a personal level, Brian is a good-humored, patient, and reasonable guy who I've always felt fortunate to work with. Marisa Ferraro, the principal at Greenville, says, I've had the pleasure to work with Brian for close to 2 decades, and my own 3 children had the great fortune to learn from Mr. Paul in his math classes at EHS. Brian has always been counted on to be a calm, logical, and incredibly intelligent person. He is undoubtedly busy, but will always take the time to help solve a problem, work through a concern, or lend advice. He is one of the hardest working people I know, and this is a true gift to Edgemont. E. Feuerstein, principal at Sealy, says, I've known Brian Paul since his days as a dedicated and skilled math teacher, where his analytical mindset and leadership qualities were always evident. I remember our conversations about his future in administration, discussing how it might be a more fulfilling and less stressful job than the one he was doing at the time as department chair. Since stepping into his role as Assistant Superintendent for Business, Brian has demonstrated exceptional leadership by streamlining processes and implementing systems that have improved efficiencies across our schools. His ability to analyze complex challenges and develop practical solutions has strengthened the operational foundation for our district. Brian's commitment to supporting our buildings and ensuring that resources are used efficiently has had a direct and positive impact on our students, teachers, and staff. His expertise, foresight, and collaborative approach make him highly deserving of tenure in this critical role. Rosemary DeVito, the president of CSEA, says, I have known Brian Paul since his days as a dedicated and skilled math teacher, where his analytical mindset and leadership qualities were already evident. I remember our conversation about his future in administration, discussing how it might be more fulfilling and less stressful. Common theme here. Brian's commitment to supporting our buildings and ensuring that resources are effectively used continue to set him aside. Rosemary says that she has had the pleasure of being on both sides of the table with Brian and found him to be thoughtful, have foresight, and be collaborative in all areas of his job. Mimi Southard, a support person in central office, says, I gave it a little thought, and I'm sure you will say that Brian is hardworking, smart, etc. Another word would be accessible. I see people popping their heads in and out of his office all day long, and he gives everyone his full attention, even though he's deep into doing whatever he's doing. Jean Alonzo, assistant business manager and treasurer, said it has been a pleasure working and getting to know Brian for over the last few months. Brian has made my transition to the Edgemont district very smooth. His helpful guidance is teaching me, and the Edgemont culture has helped me immensely. Brian works very hard and is very knowledgeable and always makes times if you have a question and wants to get his opinion or an idea. Brian's management style is fair and he is supportive of his team. Brian never forgets to thank his staff when they do a good job or helped him with the project. He is always happy to teach his staff and always willing to listen to new ideas. I feel Brian is deserving of tenure. He is dedicated, hardworking, and Edgemont is lucky to have him. And lastly, Felipe, Dr. Roscoe, Director of Assistant Superintendent for CNI. I wholeheartedly support Brian's tenure as our Assistant Superintendent for Business. In the 4 months I have worked with him, I have witnessed his professionalism, keen attention to detail, and steadfast support in every aspect of his role. Despite our limited time working together, it is evident that Brian approaches his responsibilities with diligence and cooperative spirit, ensuring that our budgeting processes are both strategic and transparent. His ability to navigate complex financial matters while fostering a culture of teamwork and shared decision, making us feel that he is an invaluable partner. I look forward to continuing our collaboration and fully support, and I believe in Brian's leadership and expertise. So I'll summarize tonight by saying there are some common threads throughout each thing that has been said. Hardworking, analytical, thoughtful, a team player. So I am happy to say that Brian has, of all the people I know, has truly earned this milestone in his career. His recognition in this critical role that he plays in our district ensures that we are fiscally sound and future ready. We are fortunate to have Brian as a part of our district, but I am more fortunate to have Brian as a thought partner and as a member of the senior cabinet. I look forward to many more years of his insightful, thoughtful, highly committed excellence and integrity. And I'd like to congratulate Brian tonight on this milestone, and I wholeheartedly submit this recommendation.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.
May I have a motion? First, Grace, second, the rest of us. Second, Nilesh. Any questions or comments?
No, I
I-
can make a comment.
Okay, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, so Brian became assistant superintendent right after COVID. And those are very challenging years. And the way with this kind of commitment and the passion and the amount of breadth and the depth of work that you go into is simply kind of, I've learned a lot through you.
Thank you.
And I really kind of applaud your work, and you deserve this, and you truly are a value add to Edgemont. And I hope you stay for long and keep contributing to Edgemont. Thank
Thank
you.
And I would just like to add, I think I speak for all of us when I say how very, very deeply we appreciate your thoroughness, your attention to detail, your ability to anticipate questions and have answers for us on the spot, and your patience with all our myriad questions that, as each of us is new, you answer for each of us over and over. And you just, but, I still go to when you have a training session because I continue to learn from you. And for that, I am extremely grateful. And this is well deserved. And so let us have a vote. All in favor? All right. Congratulations.
Thank you very
Brian.
much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And I guess the rest.
And the rest.
Are we pulling out the other one?
Nilesh, do you want to pull the certiorari's or?
Yeah, so those are very large claims, and it would be nice to give some perspective because they're very, very sizable certiorari claims.
So I'll read the motion, and Jen, if you'll call for question at that point.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Personnel matters I-1 through I-10, which includes new appointments, resignations, establishment of new titles, and leaves of absences. Student matters J1, committee recommendations for the Committee on Special Education, and business items K1 through K14, approval of budget transfers, authorization to enter various agreements, recommendation to participate in the BOCES cooperative bidding program, tax certiorari settlements, change order approval, recommendation to approve bids, and enter various agreements, including the acquisition of the voting machines.
Okay, can I have a motion? First Nilesh, second Josephine, and then Brian, if you could please.
Yes, certainly. So Nilesh, thanks for bringing this one up because I do think it is really material in a lot of different ways. It's material in terms of our total tertiary exposure. It's material in terms of the tax rate impact. So there's a lot of parts in play. Presented tonight, there are two different tertiary settlement proposals, one for Springbrook Holding Corporation, which is Springbrook Manor, and the other for Scarsdale Country Estates. These two, I'll think of them kind of in totality. the proposed settlement offerings being put forth today would result in a $3.9 million reduction in our overall liability. And so when you look at our total certiorari reserves, that's a huge reduction for us. They happen to be two of the three largest areas of liability that we've had on our books for several years. And so none of this is unexpected. Obviously we get the submittals every year and we can calculate what our expected exposure would be. But moving forward with these settlements is a huge step for us in reducing that liability without a significant amount of payment coming from the district to accomplish that. I think Nilesh had asked in part of our certiorari comments, what's the impact on this? So there is no impact in terms of the taxes we recover. As a school board, we set a tax levy, we ask for that tax levy, we get the full tax return. Where the impact is that you're spreading the effects across the community. The reduction proposed here would be over $1 million in the overall assessed value. And so when that assessed value reduces, then the overall percentage of the pie is increased for all others that are not a part of this settlement. And so it's not said to imply that there's such an impact on any one individual taxpayer, but this will result in a reduction overall of the tax assessment. And so as a result, individual shares will increase to the overall extent of that. As a result of these, if these are approved and we get consent order and judgment, our overall remaining exposure in the certiorari reserve would be reduced down to 11.6 million. And we would be 48% funded on our certiorari reserve, which is really, really well off. I think we've shared before, it's settlement percentages on the whole tend to sit in the 20% range when we look at this. So there are going to be opportunities for us as a certiorari committee to look at remaining balances on the individual years and make determinations as to whether we'd want to transfer those funds to future years in the certiorari reserve or to return some of those funds to the general fund to offset expenditures that we may see. Those conversations will ensue after consent, judgment, and order comes to actually issue the payments.
Thank you. Are there any questions on any other items in the consent agenda? Okay, then all in favor? Okay, the consent agenda has passed. That ends tonight's meeting. Our next business meeting will be on Tuesday, March 25th, 2025. Meetings begin at 6 p.m., immediately adjourn to executive session, and then return to public